A lot of people ask, what should I start with when I am reading the Bible? And if you are new to Christianity, oftentimes the Bible is a very daunting book. For a brief explanation, the Bible has an Old Testament and a New Testament. So the Old Testament is before Christ, and the New Testament speaks of Christ and after Christ. So generally, I recommend starting with the book of John. So if you flip to the table of contents in the Bible, there'll be a section for the Old Testament, a section for the New Testament. And the book of John is the fourth book in the New Testament. The reason why I encourage people to start with the book of John is because it speaks of who Jesus is. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are also great books to start with, but they speak more of what Jesus did rather than who he was. So in general, I recommend new believers or people who are interested to start with the book of John. Now, as you're reading the book of John, you're going to be most likely very confused. And I encourage you to not get discouraged, because the book of John, as well as other New Testament scriptures, will have a lot of references to the Old Testament scriptures. It'll be speaking of a time, around 0 AD, 33 BC, around that area. So a lot of it is going to be very unfamiliar. But I encourage you to not get discouraged and instead try to see what you can get out of the text as you're reading it. Additionally, a lot of times when people have questions, they go to the internet, they Google various things, they look at commentaries, and these things can all be very helpful. But sometimes, because of the abundance of information that exists, it can actually get even more confusing. And you can get really bogged down in a lot of minor details and lose the bigger picture of what's actually happening in the stories. So if you feel like that you need to look something up online or you need to consult a commentary, I encourage you to do so. But I also encourage you to actually just focus on reading the text and trying to get a sense of what the Bible actually says. After reading the book of John, usually I recommend going to the epistles. Those are the letters that are after the Synoptic Gospels and the book of Acts. Usually I would say starting either with the book of Romans or with the book of Ephesians. And that's a good place to start in terms of actually understanding what the Christian faith is, what the gospel is, and how Christians ought to live their lives.